Today we're diving into something really essential, often kind of underestimated maybe, rental property management. And we're using the book on managing rental properties by Heather and Brandon Turner as our guide.
Yeah, in this book, it's not just, another manual. They promise to share every trick, every tool, every system they personally use. The goal, helping you run your properties like a real business. More freedom, less drama, higher profits. That's the pitch.
More freedom, less drama. Sounds good.
Doesn't it? So our mission today is to really unpack that core philosophy, get into the practical strategies they lay out. How do you shift from landlording being maybe a side gig, a hobby, into a thriving business?
Okay, let's unpack exactly that then. That mindset shift, they hit it right at the start, don't they?
Immediately.
It's not just about owning the property. It's about managing it actively, like a business. What's the key difference they see between that hobby approach and a proper business approach?
Well, what's really interesting, I think, is how much they hammer home systems and processes. That's the big differentiator. A business, like they say, like Starbucks, has set ways of doing things, Same price for that coffee every day. No guesswork.
Right. Predictability.
Exactly. Predictability. Successful landlords, they argue, need that same consistency. Clear methods for everything, from collecting rent to handling repairs. It avoids errors. It helps you plan.
It takes the emotion out of it, maybe.
Totally. It stops you having to constantly reinvent the wheel. You're not just reacting all the time. You've got a plan. A hobbyist reacts. A business owner plans. That's kind of the core idea.
Okay, and part of that business plan involves being firm but fair. That phrase comes up a lot.
It does. It's central.
They tell that story really stuck with me about being nice about a tenant's puppy. A German Shepherd puppy, I think.
Yeah.
Against their own policy.
Right. And it ended up costing them thousands because the dog just wrecked the place. Carpet, trim, everything. Painful lesson.
So what does that story and that whole firm but fair idea really mean for how you deal with tenants? Especially on tricky things like late rent.
Well, it raises that exact question, doesn't it? How do you balance being, a decent human being with running a solid business? Their point is a nice landlord might let late rent slide again and again. Maybe you want to avoid conflict or you feel bad.
Yeah, and that's easy to do.
But a firm landlord, they've set clear expectations right from the start. Here's the due date, here's the grace period, here are the consequences, no ambiguity. And they argue this actually trains the tenant to prioritize rent. It sounds a bit harsh, maybe training, but it fosters responsibility.
So clear boundaries benefit everyone in the end.
That's the idea. Predictability, respect. It avoids those awkward emotional arguments later. They literally say, nice will kill your business. Firm keeps things clear and, weirdly, maybe happier long-term.
Okay, so consistency, clear boundaries, foundational stuff. But before you even get to managing tenants day to day, they say the most critical step is choosing who gets in. Tenant screening.
Absolutely pivotal. Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. Yeah. So what makes a great tenant in their eyes? And how do they suggest you pre-screen to find them?
Okay, so they're big on setting minimum standards and sticking to them religiously, like requiring income to be at least 3 times the monthly rent. That's a common one. And a decent credit score, maybe 600 plus, something like that, shows financial stability.
Makes sense.
But it's not just money. They stress checking rental history. Are there past evictions, unpaid landlord debts? That's a huge red flag. And background checks. Thorough ones on every adult applicant, not just the main one.
Every adult, okay.
Yeah, builds a whole picture, responsibility, consistency, how likely they are to actually take care of your place.
That sounds super thorough. And they even, this was pretty vivid, they list 7 tenants we'll never rent to.
Oh yeah, the archetypes.
Like Dodie Dan living in filth. Lazy Laura who can't keep a job. Dave the dealer. It paints a picture.
It does.
What are some specific red flags, maybe less obvious ones than, Dave the dealer, that people should watch out for during screening? Things that aren't just on the credit report.
Right. So those archetypes, they point to patterns, right? Irresponsibility, disregard. So beyond the numbers, they say definitely call past landlords, but be smart about it. Be wary of the current landlord.
Why that?
Well, the current landlord might just want them gone, right?
Yeah.
So they might give a glowing review just to pass the problem along.
Oh, okay. Sneaky.
Yeah. And definitely verify it's actually the landlord, not just their mate. Same goes for family or friend references, probably biased. Another tip they give, which I thought was interesting, is Googling applicants' names in quotes. See what pops up. Public records, social media maybe.
Do a little digital digging.
A little bit, yeah. And even suggest, if you can, doing a quick unexpected drive-by of their current place. See if there's junk piled up outside, cars on blocks. It tells a story about how they live.
Wow, okay, that's thorough.
Other red flags. Someone offering like 6 months rent upfront in cash for no good reason, or someone desperate to move in immediately, like tomorrow, often means they're running from something.
Good points. Okay, so screening is locked down. But
Yeah.
what about actually marketing the place and interacting with potential tenants?
Mhm.
Legally and ethically. They talk a lot about fair housing laws.
Oh, massively important. Non-negotiable. Federal laws are the baseline. No discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, or disability.
Yeah.
Ever.
The protected classes.
Exactly. But they stress you also need to know your state and local laws because they often add more protected classes. They give examples of how easy it is to mess up. Like advertising saying, perfect for families. Sounds innocent, right?
Yeah.
But it discriminates against single people or couples. Or steering, even subtly guiding someone towards a certain neighborhood or even a certain unit in your building based on, say, their race or because they have kids. Big no-no.
So ignorance is absolutely no excuse here.
None whatsoever. You have to know the laws. You have to apply your standards consistently to everyone and keep meticulous records. Every application, every email, every note. It protects you by showing you have a fair, objective process.
Okay. Meticulous records, fair process. Got it. So you've navigated all that, found a great tenant, they passed the checks. What's the very next step? They really emphasize a solid lease.
Yes, the lease is crucial, and they make a great point. A lease isn't for when things are going well, it's for when things go wrong.
Good way to put it.
So it has to be specific, tailored to your state's laws because landlord-tenant law varies hugely. It needs basics, obviously, names of all occupants, start and end dates, address, but also details. Clear guest policy. How long can someone stay before they're considered an occupant? 14 days is their example. Pet policy is super specific. What kind, size, breed restrictions, pet rent, deposit, maintenance responsibilities, who fixes what, and a move-in, move-out checklist signed by both parties. And a key detail. They insist on getting tenant initials on every single page of the lease.
Every page. Why?
To stop anyone later claiming, oh, I didn't see that clause, or I didn't agree to page 7. Initials prove they acknowledge every part. It just tightens everything up legally.
Leaves no wiggle room. Makes sense. Now, building on that lease, they have this idea of a new tenant orientation. What is that exactly? Sounds a bit formal.
It does, but it's actually pretty smart, I think.
Yeah.
It's basically a short presentation, maybe 15, 20 minutes that you do with the tenant before handing over the keys.
Okay, what do you cover?
You basically walk them through the key rules and expectations again, reinforcing what's in the lease. You clarify who's responsible for what, things like how and when to submit maintenance requests. They're strict about reporting mold or leaks within 48 hours, for example.
Right, critical stuff.
Exactly. Rent payment schedule, due date, grace period, late fee date, and emphasizing that an eviction notice gets served immediately after that if rent isn't paid. No ambiguity. Also covers smoking rules, pet rules again, guest limits, noise levels. It's all about, like they say, training the tenant from day one, setting the tone.
Training them on how you run a tight ship.
Pretty much. So there are no surprises, and they know you're serious about the rules.
And that training idea, it extends to how rent gets paid too, right? What do they recommend now? And what methods do they warn against?
Yeah, they definitely evolved. They strongly advise against collecting rent in cash, in person.
Why is that? Seems simple.
Too risky carrying cash. Also super time-consuming driving around. And tenants always seem to need change or have some excuse it's inefficient. They also stopped accepting mailed checks. Too many, oh, I must have gotten lost in the mail excuses, caused too many delays and headaches.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what's the preferred way?
Online payments. Through a landlord portal or property management software where tenants can set up direct deposit. Or services where tenants can pay cash, but at a third-party location like a 7-Eleven, which then transfers it electronically.
Oh, okay. Removes you from the direct cash handling.
Exactly. It's safer, faster, more reliable, easier to track. It fits their whole philosophy of efficient, consistent systems, less friction, fewer excuses.
Okay, systems. But even with the best systems, screening, training, problems happen, right? What are some common lease issues and how do Heather and Brandon say to tackle them?
Oh, yeah. Problems are inevitable. Common ones they list are things like junk piling up outside the property, unapproved people moving in secretly, bug infestations popping up, mold issues, noise complaints between tenants.
The usual suspects.
Pretty much. Their approach is tiered. First, always try a phone call. A simple conversation can often resolve things quickly and informally.
Start friendly.
Start friendly but clear. If that doesn't work, step 2 is a formal written notice. A notice to comply or cure or quit notice, depending on the state and the issue. It documents the violation and gives them a specific deadline to fix it.
Puts it on record.
Exactly. And if that still doesn't work and the lease allows, then you look at options like eviction or choosing not to renew their lease when it's up. They give specific tips too, like for bugs. If bugs appear after the tenant moves in, their lease makes the tenant responsible for extermination costs, assuming the place was certified bug-free at move-in. It's about clear clauses and consistent enforcement.
Clear clauses, consistent enforcement. Okay.
Yeah.
But what about those really difficult situations, the truly bad tenants you just need gone? They talk about cash for keys. Sounds a bit controversial.
It can be, yeah. Some people see it as rewarding bad behavior.
So what is it, and why do they actually advocate for it?
Okay, so cash for keys is basically offering a problem tenant money cash to move out quickly and leave the place in decent condition, usually broom clean.
Instead of evicting them formally.
Exactly. Because a formal eviction, while sometimes necessary, can be really slow and expensive. Lawyer fees can run, $1,500, $3,000, maybe more. Plus, you're losing months of rent while they're still in the unit or while it sits empty during the process.
Right. Yeah.
So cash for keys, while it feels counterintuitive, is often faster and cheaper. They might offer, say, 50% or 75% of a month's rent. They set a strict move-out date. Tenant signs an agreement, gets the cash after they've moved out and you've inspected. And smartly, they often serve the official pay or vacate notice at the same time they make the cash for keys offer.
As a backup.
As a backup. If the tenant refuses the cash deal, the legal eviction process is already underway. It's a pragmatic business decision to cut your losses and get the property back faster so you can re-rent it to a good tenant.
Minimizing the damage. Okay. So tenant moves out, whether through cash for keys or normally. What's the process then to protect your investment? Especially with the security deposit. Documentation seems key again.
Absolutely critical. The move-out walkthrough needs meticulous documentation. Photos, videos, lots of them.
Before and after.
Ideally, you have great move-in photos, videos to compare against. But definitely document the move-out condition thoroughly. Close-ups of any damage beyond normal wear and tear. Then, the security deposit disposition. This needs to be an itemized list. Every single deduction clearly explained, lock change fee, carpet cleaning if needed, cost to repair specific damages, unpaid rent. Show your math. Total transparency. And they recommend sending this disposition via certified mail, or at least getting a certificate of mailing from the post office. Proof you sent it within the legal time frame. And one last tip. Include a clause stating that settling the deposit doesn't waive your right to pursue further claims if, say, you discover hidden damage later. Cover your bases.
Good advice. Okay, shifting gears slightly. It's not just tenants. Landlords manage contractors too. That's a big part of it. Why do the authors make such a strong case for using licensed contractors, even if they cost more?
Yeah, this is a big one. That temptation to save money with a cheaper, unlicensed handyman is strong, right?
Yep.
But they are emphatic. Yes, it matters, they write in all caps, I think. Licensed contractors signal legitimacy. They're likely in business for the long haul. Crucially, they usually have bonds. That's like insurance against them doing shoddy work or disappearing. Gives you recourse.
Okay, protection.
And even more important, insurance, liability insurance. If an unlicensed worker gets hurt on your property, you could be liable. Their insurance protects you from that potentially massive financial hit.
Right.
They share a story about losing like $5,000 to an unlicensed guy who just vanished. That risk just isn't worth the upfront savings, in their view. It's penny wise and pound foolish.
Right. That $5,000 story is a powerful warning. So if licensed is the way to go, how do you find good ones and manage them effectively?
Again, it's about having a system, a screening process, just like for tenants. Theirs has 5 steps. 1, pre-screen interviews, phone or in person, get a feel for their professionalism. 2, check references and actually call them.
Don't just collect names.
Right. And ask if they're related to the contractor. Try to sniff out fake references. 3, ask about past jobs similar to yours. 4, if it's major work, verify they pulled permits with the city, shows they follow rules. And 5, the big one, verify their license, bond, and insurance online with the state licensing board. Don't just take their word for it.
Verify, verify, verify.
Absolutely. And for managing them, get everything in writing. Scope of work, cost, payment schedule. Pay by the job for bigger projects, not hourly, avoids cost spiraling. And a practical tip. Don't pay too much upfront, especially with someone new. Keep them a little hungry, motivated to finish the job well to get that final payment.
Makes sense. Keep them motivated. Okay, finally, bringing it all home. The authors talk about the real nuts and bolts organization, bookkeeping. How crucial is this? And what are their core principles?
It's the engine room of the business, really, knowing your numbers. Core principle, separate finances, separate bank accounts, separate credit cards, either for each property or at least for the whole rental business. Keep it totally distinct from your personal money.
Avoids confusion.
Massively. Track every receipt. They suggest physically writing the property address and the purpose of the expense right on the receipt itself. Then meticulously itemize all income and all expenses. Software helps here, obviously. And reconcile your bank statements regularly. Make sure everything matches up. It's like a monthly puzzle, they say, that gives you peace of mind.
Knowing where every penny went.
Exactly, because then you can generate accurate financial reports, profit and loss, cash flow. This isn't just for taxes, although it makes that way easier. It shows you the true performance of your properties. Where are you spending too much? Which units are most profitable? It lets you make smart, data-driven decisions, reduces stress, and ultimately boosts your bottom line. It's absolutely fundamental to running it like a business.
It really ties everything together, doesn't it? The systems, the screening, the management, right down to tracking the finances. Heather and Brandon Turner, they really drive home the point. Landlording doesn't have to be this constant drain, this source of endless drama.
Not at all.
It can be a profitable, maybe even, dare I say, liberating business. But you have to take it seriously. Learn the ropes, implement these kinds of proven systems.
Yeah, this whole deep dive into their book, it just highlights that again and again. A proactive approach, thinking like a business owner, using clear, consistent systems. It really can lead to more freedom and way less drama.
So the question for you listening is, if applying these strategies, this firm but fair approach, these clear systems, meticulous records can transform something as potentially messy as property management, where else in your life could that same combination help you gain a bit more freedom and cut down on the drama? Maybe it's your personal budget, maybe a side project, maybe even managing team dynamics at work.